So, Pop Culture Weekly, once again, I am here with the amazing Jacqueline Coley, editor at Rotten Tomatoes and host of the podcast, the Awards Tour podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of
Uh,
course. Thank you for coming on again. I appreciate it.
yeah, glad to be here, especially talking about great moments in Black cinema because there's tons, right?
There are, and it does not get enough love and attention. And in my opinion, the more that we talk about it, the less that we have to worry about that. Hopefully, that's the goal anyway. Um,
Yeah.
so Rotten Tomatoes actually has a hub, which you are involved with. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually at Rotten Tomatoes, we have what we call our heritage and celebration hubs that we put out throughout the year. This is actually the first one of the year. We kick it off with Black History Month, and then we move into Women's Heritage, and then we go on through to API, Native American, Hispanic Heritage, and LGBTQ. It's a great moment to sort of show these visionary and landmark moments in cinema, people whose names have maybe been forgotten in history that we're trying to highlight, films that have been overlooked, as well as what I would consider like the staples and canons of both filmmakers and moments, like films like obviously, Wakanda Forever and Black Panther. That was a movie that a lot of people saw and understood exactly how the Black experience was sort of given that huge Marvel cinematic moment. But then there's like smaller films like Daughters of the Dust and Woman, and they all find incredible moments on this hub, and they find incredible moments with the way that everything works out at Rotten Tomatoes on our site, which is really great.
That is really awesome. So tell me about, some of the pieces on there that we can go and check out and read and then explore those films.
Yeah, so I would say as an editor, I'm definitely intricately involved in a ton of these, but I will highlight the one that I actually did starting in 2014, and that is movies that celebrate Black joy, because oftentimes in cinema, and this is actually something that's discussed in a current Best Picture nominee, American Fiction, when they think about Black stories, the only sort of viewpoint we get into them is often through the lens of pain, oppression, and marginalization, which is very real and very true. But there's so many films that are just simply about Black joy or the moments of Black joy. And although not every single film on this list is joyful all the way through, it's not as if they don't have serious moments. They have an incredible, I would say, representation of the films that make us laugh out loud. Films like Girls Trip, 40-Year-Old Version, a new film that was actually nominated for a BAFTA, Rye Lane. And then you also have moments of just like Black excellence with stuff like Beyonce's Homecoming and Renaissance and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And all of
Yes.
these, like there's nothing more joyful than thinking of like Miles Morales as Spider-Man leaping across the New York skyline. To me, that is the absolute epitome of what we think of when we think of Black joy.
Absolutely. And, speaking to Spider-Man across the Spider-Verse and now a trilogy, or will soon be a trilogy. My godson Aiden is half black, half white, and when that came out, he was so excited, and I was excited because I'm a Spider-Man fan, and Miles Morales is a huge kind of fan favorite as well. That was very underrepresented in film, especially. And he said something to me that really struck me, and it was, he looks like me because
Yeah.
he Aiden has like his little fro, and his mom will sometimes do like the ties and all, and he was so excited to see a character that looked like him, this superhero on screen, and it meant so much to him. So I was so excited to go with him to the theater to see it. But it made me really think. It kind of, broke my heart in a lot of ways to think that he is getting excited about this because it's so rare that there's somebody that looks like him on screen,
Yeah.
especially as a little kid.
And that's what's great about films. We actually just got back from the Oscar luncheon on Monday or last Monday, where we talked to a lot of the nominees, and they were talking about. We actually spoke to the Spider-Verse guys because they're Oscar nominated again this year, about how everybody gets to have an origin story, and Spider-Verse, like at the heart of its DNA, is celebrating that origin story. And yeah, you can see those videos with Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are hot on working for their third installment of that franchise, talk about that, which I thought was very powerful.
Yeah, and it speaks to the power of film, and it speaks to, for me, Aiden's story speaks to uh how important that representation is. I want to see stories of people that look like me, especially, as a kid. I mean, for him to have to be so excited about that in a way is sad. But it also makes me happy that he's so happy that he is finally getting to see that on screen, and it's positive, and it's a superhero, and it's from a Marvel character, and it's Spider-Man of all people. Representation really, really does matter, and I love that about our medium. Is that entertainment can tell those stories.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Another one of the ones that we have on the hub is actually one from a new contributor for us. He's actually a YouTuber, and his name is Chris Tate. And he did this incredible piece about 10 films about Black music that have turned these icons into household names. Now, I will say, I don't know if you've seen the new Netflix documentary, The Greatest Night in Pop, where they had like Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, Ray Charles, and all of them gathered together to sing We Are the World.
Yes.
But that was a seminal moment of Black representation. I mean, this is 1985. They were still fighting to get Black artists consistently shown on MTV at this point. And so having that sort of large scale event with these white Black artists together, coming together to do something for charity, to do something meaningful, but more importantly to put them all on equal footing with the superstars of their day, that was a huge one. Also, the new Bob Marley movie, where I think you and
Yes.
I probably know who Bob Marley is, but we have to remember, kids of this certain time frame, he is less, I think, known in the younger generations. And so getting that moment to where these folks can sort of see him and see what he meant to his country, but more importantly, what he meant to the world. And then in another film that is also on my Black Joy piece, and that is Questlove's The Summer of Soul,
That's
which
so
speaks,
good.
yeah, which speaks of the Harlem Cultural Festival from the 1960s, and that documentary, which breaks down all of the artists, how incredible it was for the community, but more importantly, how rare it was to see all of these Black artists on a single bill in such a large scale event. That one is on there too. And then one of my favorites on here is the Aretha Franklin documentary concert film, Amazing
Amazing.
Grace. Yeah.
Yes.
Which was vaulted away for decades due to conflicts between Aretha Franklin and the producers. But her estate eventually did release the rights for the film to come out. And it's so powerful because you forget how transcendent Aretha Franklin was as both a pop star. Like the Rolling Stones just like show up in the
Mhm.
background of this documentary to be like, well, Aretha's singing and we're going to be there.
Yeah.
And like this
Yeah.
is, I think 1972 was when that one came out.
Did you, and this is semi related, did you see Tina's documentary on Max?
Yeah, that's actually also on the list with Chris. You didn't know, but now you do. That Chris has that one on there too. Tina, such it's incredible because we saw What's Love Got to Do with It. I think a lot of people think they knew Tina Turner's story, but this goes so much more in depth. And I think there's an incredible triple bill to be had where you watch What's Love Got to Do with It, Tina, and then finish it off when they eventually do this, because I hope to God they do, the Tina on Broadway. If you've never
Mm.
seen it, it is absolutely incredible because I feel like those two are like the melding of everything you see in the doc, in the film, and then when they do it on Broadway, it becomes even more powerful.
Yeah, that Tina's passing really hit me way more than I thought it would. I'm a huge Tina Turner fan. She was one of the first concerts that I ever saw.
Wow.
And my mom had got me into. My mom was into soul and line dancing and disco and all kinds of things. So my mom had actually got me into her. And when she passed, I mean, it was a couple of days that I was sad. It was actually like the first celebrity death that I
Wow.
think really kind of hit me because she represented so much for me and so many other people. But, this is a woman who went through it,
Yeah.
obviously, and came out as this symbol of strength and power and creativity and all of these amazing things. And let's not forget that her solo career was in her 40s, which is like
Yeah.
unheard of even today to start a solo career, but especially then, and became bigger than she ever had. And she represented so much and represents so much for so many people that it really hit me way harder than I was even would have thought. And then I watched that documentary and I was just sobbing because it's such a beautiful documentary. It's such a beautiful tribute to her life, but she also wasn't all good times, and she wasn't afraid to discuss that in many instances. I think she got to a point where she was like, all right, enough about asking about Ike. But for at least a long time, she was not afraid to discuss those lows, and that, in my opinion, matters too, because it's our lows, especially if we're able to share them with others, that can help somebody else potentially get out of their low. And she
Mhm.
was that film. Oh my God. Anyway, a tangent, but
No, no,
Tina is
it's
so
and
good.
it speaks to what I was speaking to before because she, along with Michael Jackson and a couple of other key artists, were those first artists that sort of broke the color barrier on MTV. I mean,
Yeah.
What's Love Got to Do with It became a huge hit on MTV in 1984, and that was one of the first black I would say artists outside of Michael Jackson that was in heavy rotation.
Mm,
Nobody could deny Michael Jackson, but he was at risk of becoming singular in that environment
right.
without people like Tina Turner, without stuff coming out by folks like Diana Ross in the 80s. That really sort of forced them to say, no, we're going to continue with this. We're going to continue showcasing these artists because they are music. And yeah, no, I absolutely agree about Tina Turner. She really was an inspiration to domestic abuse survivors, but more importantly, just an inspiration as far as music. And so, yeah, she was a huge loss. It's funny though, because she, along with a lot of the films that I mentioned, like Girls Trip and Black Panther and so many others, they're so big. And another feature that we actually have on the hub from a couple years ago is actually about underrated or under the radar gems that you maybe don't know about that are
Mm.
just absolutely incredible. It was written 3 years ago by Valerie Complex.
Oh, I've had her on the show.
Yeah, we
She's
love
awesome.
Valerie. Yeah, she is so great. And just to give you some of the names that are on this one, first of all, we have Jinn. That was directed by Nigella Minu. She's actually she got her start directing for Queen Sugar with Ava DuVernay, and
Mm.
now she's gone on to be a part of the new the Kevin Durant show Swagger. She was a writer on that, and it is her story as a Muslim teenage girl sort of trying to do the intersection between her Black identity, her American identity, and her Muslim identity, and sort of navigating the realities of how she is true to all three when all three seem very much in conflict. Absolutely incredible. Shows also a young Kelvin Harrison, who folks
Mm.
will recognize from another underrated film of recent memory, and that's Chevalier. He
Yes.
played a French aristocrat who was also of mixed race. That one is awesome. Also, Night Comes On, which was the first time we got to see Dominic Fishback, who would go on to be in Judas and the Black Messiah, and
Which
so
was
many,
amazing.
which was also so amazing. There's just way too many incredible films on this list that you maybe haven't checked, and that's just the more recent ones. There's also ones from the past, like the television film, the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, which was huge in the 70s, but not a lot of people realize about it now as sort of like a modern day hit. And then we also
I'm
have like,
going to. Sorry for
no,
my
go
interruption,
ahead.
but
No,
that's
no,
I've
go
I've
ahead.
actually never heard of that, so I'm going to be adding that to my letterbox so I can put it on to find it and watch it.
Yeah, this is sort of that was I think for a lot of people, if you knew Cicely Tyson as the icon that she is, that is probably the role that they most associated to her at her heyday in the 70s and 80s. And then I'm going to bring out two more before I end with this list because I want you to head on over to Rotten Tomatoes and head out and hit up our Black Heritage Hub so you can see all of these ones. But one of them is by a 19-year-old filmmaker, Phil Humans. He did a film called Burning Cane. It starred Wendell Pierce, who also won the Tribeca Best Actor Award for his performance in that. And the kid won Tribeca before he was legally able to drink. He couldn't even drink at his own after party, and he already beat out all the filmmakers that day. It talks about race and religion and how, as a Black person, the sort of oppression of religion and how you can lose your faith because it's sometimes the leaders don't end up being exactly who they pretend to be. It's a very nice double feature with Dune, which is also a film that sort of like warns you against false prophet. But another film that's on here and sort of a sad one is Charm City Kings, which is actually a film you can't even see anymore because it was one of those first victims of, we're taking this off the streaming service for a tax write-off. And it told the story of young motorcycle culture and dirt bike culture in urban environments. And it's so sad because now it's just a film that you have to know if you saw it. Maybe you luckily got a screener for it. I still have my screener. I will hold on to it until my dying days. But yeah, this is a film that Angel Manuel Sota's first feature film, and it was a favorite at Sundance, and now it is gone to history. So it just goes to show you how if we don't celebrate these films, they can disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Valerie, so she's a huge horror fan. I'm a huge horror fan. And so we whenever I talk to her, we gush over our, fanboy and girling of horror films. Horror films for me, Black horror films have kind of becoming or are kind of getting, I feel like, their moment finally, and that is opening doors for more Black horror films. Jordan Peele is one of my favorite creatives. He is a genius, and he, for me, and this is as a white boy talking, so please, but for me, I think he has opened so many doors for other Black creatives and he's empowered them. Us, I mean, everything he does, I just think is genius. But he produced the Candyman reboot, and I'm horrible, but the director on that is a
Nia
Black woman.
DaCosta.
Oh
Yeah,
my
Nia DaCosta.
God,
Yeah.
she is
so
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Which made me explore her other work from watching Candyman and loving it so much.
Oh, do you
And
got Little Trees, I think? Yeah. Is that what?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. She is, oh my God. And I love that somebody like Jordan Peele is using his platform to open people's eyes, open the industry's eyes, especially, which I feel like is really the problem, to a large part of it, to these other amazing talents that have their own stories that they are telling, And for me, I think horror is such. I did an interview with Elvira. I talk to her every
Oh,
Halloween,
wow.
and we were talking about like Oscar So White. It's like for a while it was horror so white.
Mm.
And now we're seeing, I think the horror fandom, horror fans are generally people who they don't care what color the filmmaker is or what stories they're telling, as long as they're telling interesting stories. And so horror for me is an interesting place that I feel like Black creatives have been able to go to tell these stories. That look at Jordan Peele. Now he's like a major, incredible, huge, one of the top creatives in Hollywood. And I love that horror allows that in so many ways, because as sucky as it is to say, it's a way into the bigger system.
Mm.
And there are so many amazing films. There's a film, did I write it down? There's a horror film, The Black Girl and the Monster or something.
Oh,
And
yeah, the Black girl and her angry monster. The
yeah,
angry Black girl and her monster.
yes, like
Uh-huh.
that is so, that is telling there's no doubt that is a Black creative telling a Black story. And me as a horror fan, I'm just like, this is a great horror movie. Oh, and by the way, you know what I mean?
Well, no, I think that's the key is like
It's important.
it's specific, but it's still universal. And I think that's
Exactly.
the thing that horror is sort of like romance and some of these other genres that have very specific sort of perimeters. You can get very niche, like Get Out. Get Out is a very Black story about very particular aspects of Black identity and navigating the world of whiteness in the case of Chris in that moment. but it's still completely universal. That's why it was nominated for Best Picture. That's why it took home Academy Awards, is because even though it was talking to a very specific group of people, or maybe was coming through the viewpoint of a very specific group of people, it still was something that was universal because within storytelling, if you're doing it right, it can be that way. And we do actually also have a Black horror guide where we sort of break down a few of those. And a recent edition that I think is really key for that one is actually The Blackening, which was out last year. It was written by Dwayne Perkins and produced by Will Packer. Produced and directed by Will Packer. And that is another example of the other aspect of Black horror, is that Black horror comedies, because Get Out is also a Black horror comedy. That's a really big part of it, is the laughing until you cry. And I'm not
Mm.
just talking on the parody side. I mean, we're speaking to films like The Blackening, movies like Get Out, but even something like Candyman. Like there's very comedic moments even in the original Candyman. There's funny sort of things that you sort of navigate within these features, which I think is really important. And Jordan is not just leaving it with Black artists; he's all marginal artists. His production company Monkey Paw is also producing Dev Patel's first directorial feature, and so I think again, it's definitely, this moment is about Black cinema, but I think it's about all marginalized voices getting their chance to sort of speak to it.
I love that. I love that. What other interesting, I mean, obviously, I want everybody to go to the hub and check them out. But what are some other like top of mind lists that speak to you currently?
Yeah, I would say there's also our TV guide for anybody who's
Mm.
like, okay, I've seen some of this other stuff, but what's coming out right now? This will give you exactly where every streamer, every studio, if they have content right now this month that is particularly geared towards the Black voices or celebrating Black voices, our hub will tell you exactly where to find all of it. So you'll be able to click on there and see exactly where Disney Plus has all of their Black History Month stories.
Mm.
And then there's new things or things that are coming back. Like, for example, we have Lawman Bass Reeves. It's about to come back with its next season, and it has the premiere date for that. Also, Genius, which is the Nat Geo feature that's on Disney Plus. The next iteration, which is about Malcolm X and um, Martin Luther King, that one is going to be there. These are men that only met once, but were very integral in each other's lives in the civil rights movement. We also have the new season of, like I said, Lawman Bass Reeves. We also have the new season of Abbott Elementary, which obviously is a huge and hilarious feature, but they came right back for Black History Month, and new shows like the Vince Staples show, which is going to be on Netflix. And so the Vince Staples, the musical artist, is sort of stepping into the small screen with his very first series. And then also, like, again, things that have been celebrated for multiple years, like Queen Latifah's Equalizer. After the Hollywood writer's strike, she's finally coming back with that season 4, which will be on CBS. And you can find information about all of those, what days they premiere, as well as what folks are saying about them on our TV guide for 2024. And it
I
has all
love
of those
that.
on a calendar.
Thank you. That's an awesome feature. It makes it an easy kind of one-stop shop to go and see
Mm-hmm.
what you want to see and plan your viewing.
Yeah.
So, what can we expect from you next? You have so much going on constantly.
I mean, mainly, I would say after you go ahead and hit the Black Heritage Hub, head on over to the Awards Tour Hub. That's where I spend most of my time this time of year, updating exactly who's winning throughout the season. As well as, like I said, we have our Awards Tour podcast where I sort of speak to various filmmakers. We have great interviews with Sterling K. Brown, who was nominated this year, as well as Danielle Brooks, who was nominated for The Color Purple.
And where can we find all of this stuff?
Yeah, just head on over to Rotten Tomatoes. Like I said, the Black Heritage Hub is right on our homepage, as well as the awards tour is the one right underneath that. And if not, you can just find me on every single social channel at that Jacqueline, and I'm sure I've posted something.
And the Awards Tour podcast you can get on the iHeartRadio app, Apple or Apple Podcasts, wherever, right?
Everywhere that podcasts are available, you can find it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking with me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Please come back soon and we'll talk whatever it is that you want to talk about.
Thank you. It was so great to be here again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.